Will you pray for me? Holy One, may the words of my lips and the meditations of all our hearts be acceptable in your sight, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Wednesday morning, the women of Wellesley College, just outside Boston, got up and left their homes and headed toward classes. They had been up late the night before, watching the election returns, for one of their own was at the top of the ticket. And they had gone to bed dispirited and woken up brokenhearted, but they were starting their day the best they could. When suddenly the blare of a horn and the squeal of tires sounded through the campus, and then came a pickup truck driving through with a Trump flag on the back, and two young men in the cab yelling racial slurs and gender-demeaning insults out the window and saying, "You're in Trump's America now." And the truck parked outside Harambe House, the Center of Africana Studies there, and when a woman yelled at them to leave, to stop, they spit at her. Then they drove on their way and out of the campus and down the road. Later that same day, a bunch of Plymouth people gathered on this very spot. We had put out a call that the church would be open for anyone who needed a place to come, to pray, to talk, to process, to not be alone. And a small group gathered. Not many could on such short notice, but there were 15 or 16 of us in a circle here, and we prayed, and we wept, and we lit candles on this table, and we shared, and we talked, and we wept, and we prayed. And as I sat there with dark falling outside, but the light growing in the middle of this circle, I swear to you, it was like I could hear a snare drum beating in the distance. I do not like martial metaphors, but I'm just telling you that's what I heard in my head. It was like a snare drum beating in the distance, and then I heard the words of the song we're going to sing later in the service, "My Eyes Have Seen the Glory." We won't call it the Battle Hymn of the Republic. If you don't call it that, it's a great song. And we're going to sing it, and I heard the words from the second verse, "I have seen him in the watchfires of 100 circling camps." And there we were in a circle around this light that we were making to grow. And I realized that we were one of those circling camps. And he was in the midst of us. And we were just the advance guard. We were just the first wave, just the ones who could manage to get here first of a great, gentle army that was rising to its feet. And I looked around the circle, just that little subset of people, just those 15 or so people there. And there was one there who runs a business whose profit goes to help women with eating disorders and body dysmorphia. And she was sitting next to someone who, after getting back from the Peace Corps, has devoted her life to helping refugees find a home in this city. And there was someone there who pours her life out helping people who can't afford health care in a clinic right across the street from here. And there were people who founded 2 different food pantries in this city right here. And there were inner city school teachers who had spent their lives working with children who needed someone to help them. And that's just the beginning. And that doesn't even count the legions of social workers and counselors that could not come that night because they had spent that day helping their clients process what had been triggered in them the night before. Just the tiniest subset. And so much power right there in that circle. And it was like I heard the drum beat start to pound, and I was ashamed of my own despair. Last week I stood in this place and reminded you that underneath it all are the everlasting arms, that God is holding the whole world. And I sent a similar message to you by email on Wednesday, and I worried that that would sound too pious to you. It would to me too. I worried it would sound like I was just patting you on the head and saying, don't worry, it's going to be fine. And it would to me too if I didn't have the second half of the line on there. I told you over and over, God will still be God no matter what. But I said this too, and I hope you heard it. God will still be God, but we will still be us. God will still be God, but we will still be social workers and teachers and artists and founders of nonprofits and volunteers. We will still be Plymouth Church. And good friends, I want you to know we have been training for this moment for a long time. This day does not find us unprepared. Have we not been practicing for this for generations? Is this not why we became an open and affirming congregation 1,000 years ago? So that I could stand up and say, anyone who is a same-sex couple that wants to get married before the new administration, call me and I will do it for free. Tell your friends. Isn't that why we did that? Didn't we become a new sanctuary congregation just in case the deportations start in earnest, so that we would be ready to open this building, all 3 floors if we need to give a place of safety and sanctuary to those who need it? Isn't that why we did that? Didn't we become a just peace congregation so in case the violence started at home or abroad, we would be ready to rise to our feet and march to the defense of the weak? Haven't we been getting ready for a long time? If they come for a woman in a hijab out on the street, will you stand with her? I'm really asking, if they come for a woman in a hijab out on the street, will you stand with her? Yes. If they come to tell Emily or Sarah that their bodies are not theirs, to try to tell them what to do with them, will you stand with her? Yes. If they come for Luckner or for Nessa and tell them that they have to go home, will you stand with them? Yes. If they come for my family, will you stand with me? If they come for you, we will stand with you. If they come for anyone, will we stand with them? Plymouth, you make me ashamed of my own despair. That day, on Wednesday, those 2 guys in the truck, they thought they got away scot-free, but what they didn't know was that the women that they thought had fallen silent in fear because they weren't throwing rocks or bricks or screaming at them, what they didn't know is what those women were doing was taking their pictures. And taking pictures of the license plate on their truck and sending them out to the deep, strong, powerful network of Wellesley women on that campus and the ones who had left it. And before the rear tires of that truck had crossed the border of the campus, that network had identified the owner of the truck and the passenger of the truck. And it called the administration at Babson College just down the road where those 2 went, and it called the national office of the fraternity they were members of, the fraternity that immediately removed them from membership, saying there is no place for hate in this organization. The campus that is now investigating what they did and deciding what to do with them, and will probably expel them. They thought that because the women were silent, they weren't doing anything. They thought that because they weren't screaming, they were afraid. They thought that they had won. I don't know what the future holds, Plymouth. I don't. I don't know what will happen to those two. I don't know what will happen at Wellesley, but I know this. Hate will think twice before it steps onto that campus again. And I know this. The days of the people of our God will be as long as the days of a tree on the earth, and they will not hurt on God's holy mountain. At least not as long as Wellesley women and Plymouth Church are around. Say amen.